Hi, and welcome to Master Your Fishing. So far in Series 1, we've been covering the pole and the method feeder, but today we'll be concentrating on the waggler and seeing when and how this can prove to be the most successful tactic. Do you want to be a fishing master? Then join me in just a sec. The pole and the method feeder dominate heavily on commercials these days, but you know what? The waggler still has its place and should always be in your armoury. You join me today on the banks of the Arena at Cudmore Fishery, the home of Fishermania. Let's get down to business and I'll run you through the finer details of waggler fishing. So why do we fish the waggler? The pole and the method feeder are so dominant on commercials as we've discussed because the tackle and tactics are so refined that when the fish are hard on the feed, they're very efficient at catching them. But that's when the waggler comes in, is when the fish back off and they're not hard on the feed. During the middle of the day or in the middle of the match, the fish back off into areas where they're harder to catch because they're not confidently feeding. And that's when the waggler comes in. It allows you to search those areas and pick up odd fish throughout the day, both by searching around the peg and also searching through the water, because the waggler generally allows you to have perfect presentation fishing on the drop. So that covers the why. So what about the when? Well, the when is dictated 100% by the weather. Not only do you need perfect conditions to actually fish the waggler and give you good presentation, because the wind can blow your rig around and make the bait look unnatural, that also coincides with the best conditions where this tactic will work. Hot, still conditions in the summer where the fish are cruising around, they're not really feeding, that's when this can score. The same in the winter, when you have a bright, still day, searching with a waggler, even without feeding, can actually become a match-winning tactic. Okay, so I'm going to run you through some of the key principles of what I believe make waggler fishing work. So we'll start off with the waggler. The number one choice for the waggler is to get as light as possible for the distance you're fishing, and everything else reflects that. So we start with the line as well. The line needs to be as light as possible for the size fish you're catching. The heavier and thicker it is, the harder it is to cast, and then therefore the thicker the waggler. Moving on with that theme, the choice of rod is also important. A 12-foot rod will not be able to allow you to cast as well as a 13-foot rod. So where possible, I always choose a 13-foot rod because it allows you to, again, use a lighter waggler, and it also allows you to use lighter hook lengths because the extra length cushions the fight from the fish far more effectively than your 12-foot rods. I would use a 12-foot rod, however, for bagging wagglers, etc. in the summer, because you're inherently using heavier gear. And the next stage is to talk about what happens below the waggler. For me, this is, again, one of the most key important details of why it works. You're always fishing on the drop. Now, one of the common mistakes that I see people make is having no shot beneath the waggler. To me, having 2, 3 small shot down the line helps keep that straight in the water. So you're always fishing direct to your hook bait, and you're actually going to see the indications on your float. If you have no shot down the line, what you end up having is a big loop, and the fish can suck that bait in without giving you an indication. So that's why I do that. And the last thing is, again, is just to have as light a hook length as you think you can get away with. Again, coupled with the 13-foot rod, that helps you deliver that. There are literally thousands of floats available on the market, but let's have a look at the 4 key sort of floats that I look for. So today, we're at Cudmore. It's coming into autumn, the water temperature's going down, so I've gone for an insert waggler. But the idea being that I'm looking for bites on the drop, so I want to be able to read not only the pellet down but my dropper shot and look for bites on the drop, which an insert waggler allows you to do that. If it was a bit warmer, what you'd go for is a straight waggler. They're a bit more buoyant and you're not going to be striking at so many small indications with fish bumping into the line. During the summer months, there's a whole plethora of up in the water floats available, all of which are designed to help you catch fish. We've got the trick and waggler floats. We've got a removable base to allow you to remove this disc. What this disc does is stop the float diving too deep into the water, because this float is designed to be catching fish very, very shallow. So if this disc wasn't there, that float would be diving through the water and scaring the fish. And it's got shot inside, which when you flick the float, actually makes a sound as if pellets are hitting the water. So that can be a great choice. And with the crystal as well, it's a bit more camouflage for fishing up in the water. A very similar float is the popper. I'd use that for the depths in between sort of what you'd use a trick and float and an insert or straight waggler. Again, it's designed for fishing high up in the water with a disc to stop it diving, with a nice balsa quality construction which won't let you down. And then the last one that we can choose is a method feeder type float. These don't come out very often, but they're perfect for when you're trying to catch fish high up in the water or well beyond what you can catapult any pellets. You put like a ground bait round that and cast it well beyond what you'll ever feed any 8mm pellets and get the fish up in the water. And these can win matches, and I have done in the past with them. So that's the choice of wagglers. Generally speaking, you'll need some locking shot, which I use a BB or an AA of the twin cut, and they go round the float to lock it into place. As stated, one of the key things is the small shot down the line. Personally, I prefer to use the slot shot in this instance, just because of the rectangular nature. They're going to sink slightly slower than a normal shot, normal split shot which is round. Again, light lines, I'm using 016 today of the M-Tech, which is about 4.4 pounds. You can go lighter, but 016 is about as light that I would go personally on the waggler. And last but not least, your hook length. Again, Middy produce a lot of ready pre-tied hook lengths to make your life easier on the bank. Today, I'm using a KM2 to 014 and a 16 hook. And that's always finished off with a band when fishing with pellets. I'm just going to talk to you about casting out. Like I touched on before, one of the most important things with waggler fishing is keeping your hook bait tight to your waggler. So that means slowing the line down as you're casting out, just as the float hits the surface, so your hook bait springs in that direction away from your float. And you can only do that by feathering the line. Let me show you how to do it. So we cast out, and now as that float starts to get to where you're fishing, you're slowing it down with your finger on the spool. So that pellet is always that side of the float. So everything's nice and tight, and if a fish intercepts that bait on the way down, you're going to see the bite. So we just hooked this one. This took it on the drop as soon as it settled. Like I said, using that insert waggler, I was able to see the bite on the drop. It looks like a nice sized carp. There we go, safely in the net. It's the thing I like about these 4GS nets. The open mesh allows you to scoop really quickly. And there we go, a £3 common carp caught on the waggler. It doesn't get any better than that. When you actually get into fishing the waggler, you're either going to find the fish are going to be up in the water and you're getting bites on the drop, or they're going to be on the bottom. There's a couple of little tips just to give you to help fish for those fish in those situations. So basically, if you're getting bites up in the water, you generally want to be feeding just before you cast, so then you're making sure that your pellets falling in amongst your loose feed. And another also point to talk about is if you are getting bites on the drop, is to cast it out, feather on the way down, but don't sink your line, because you want the float to stay in that position where it's made the sound for the fish to come up and intercept it. The other scenario you're going to find yourself with is if you're fishing on the bottom like I am today, is that you need to sink your line in order to nail everything still. So what you're going to do is cast out, cast past where you're going to be fishing, wind back and sink your line, and then you're going to feed on top to sort of set a trap. And that's generally the sort of two ways that you'll find yourself fishing a waggler. It varies a bit, but that's the two key principles that you'll find yourself in. And then the last thing is to make sure you've got a nice robust catapult. I've got the larger X-Flex here with thicker elastic that won't let you down during the session. Well, there's an overview of waggler fishing. Join me next time, and remember, master your fishing, master those fish.